Hi, this is a story about a set of keys. A number of years back, when Patrick was a first-class scout, he was in charge of one of the scouting trips, and he decided to do a bicycling trip. And on this bicycling trip, we went out to upstate New York, and we took a nice ride for 25 miles along the Erie Canal. It was a great trip. We had an opportunity to stop at the locks and get the locksmith to come and give us a demonstration about how they do their job, what they do there. And the boys just generally had a really nice trip. We played some football in one of the old locks that had been filled in, and it was dirt under it, so we were able to do that while we were waiting for some of the transportation to drive us back. But it was a really great trip. Now, on a Saturday night, after we were done, after we had done the cookout and the boys were ready to start to go into their tents, all of a sudden there was this big storm that came up. And it was a pretty threatening looking storm, and so we sent the boys into their tents, and the adults were standing around this old green canvas that we had that was the cooking tent. Now, the canvas at that point was about a, I don't know, 10 by 10, 12 by 12 foot rectangle. It wasn't very big, but it was really, really old. I'm sure it was old when Mike Jones was in diapers. Okay, that's how old it was. And one of the funny things is that prior to our joining the troop, apparently the boys had bought a ton of Pop-Tarts that they kept in the trailer. And those Pop-Tarts were getting pretty old at that point. And I remember at one point in the night, we were standing in front of this tent. And then the tent, you know, I'm a pretty tall guy, Steve is a pretty tall guy. It comes up about to our nose. And we were kind of standing at the edge of the tent. And suddenly Steve realized that, you know, those Pop-Tarts that everyone keeps complaining about, that they're smelling kind of funny, they smell exactly like the mold that's on this tent. That was when we threw the Pop-Tarts away at that point. Anyway, later on that night, a storm came through, and at that point, you know, we'd gotten the kids away, and the adults were still out watching the storm because it was really cool watching it come across the valley and across the canal right into our campsite. And it was a pretty strong gust of wind, and it took all the adults to hold down that tent flap to keep it from flying away. And it was a very short-lived event. It just 2 or 3 minutes, it blew through, and then we were done. But it was a little scary at the time. And that was part of what made that a memorable trip. But what made it most memorable to me was on Sunday. We packed up all of the campsite, we got it put into the cars, and all of a sudden Steve couldn't find his keys. It seems that somewhere along that 25-mile bike ride, Steve had lost his keys. So he called home, he talked to Lillian. Yeah, it was about a 4-hour drive for her to come out to bring the spare set. Nothing that she really wanted to do on a Sunday. So Steve ended up having to just call the locksmith, get him to make another set of skis from the identifier that Lillian had, and eventually he was able to drive home. So anyway, to Steve, thank you for all of your efforts over the years. We appreciate all the hard work that you've put in helping make Troop 77 such a great troop and have so much fun and experiences for the boys. So thank you much, Steve.